This is Tahir Gora. I'm your host in Candid Talk at Tech TV. Today, I'm joined with a very dynamic and vibrant personality, Ms. Raheel Raza. She's president and founder of Muslims Facing Tomorrow, as well as she's an activist for human rights, for women's rights, and she's also international speaker. Welcome, Raheel.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We have seen you so busy in 2016. You had about over 38 international seminars, and you've been all over the world. You covered honor killing issues. You had to counter Islamism, as you are doing this for a long now. And you also visited Europe several times, and you have seen growing Islamism over there as well. So how was that busy year for you?
Well, you could say that in 2016, I grew wings. I was more in the air than I was in the ground. I did travel a lot, but it was all very inspirational. It was very educational. And you know, life is all about learning. It's Albert Einstein who said that you learn from yesterday, you live for today and you have hope for tomorrow. So definitely 2016 was a year of learning for me. It started off very well in January. I was invited by the Swedish Parliament to come and speak to them about honor-based violence. And it was really a shock and a surprise for me to learn that in Sweden there is a high number of cases of honor killings. And what is very difficult in Sweden is that the Swedish government is very politically correct. And these honor killings have been going on. There hasn't been mainstream media coverage of it. So a group of Kurdish women, actually very, very bright, activist, brave Kurdish women, decided that they wanted to have honor-based violence as one of the legalities of the legal system. They wanted it as a special heading under the legal system. So I went there to show them the Clarion documentary, Honor Diaries, in the Swedish Parliament, which was absolutely amazing. And then I spoke to them about the fact that honor-based violence it exists in the West. It's growing in the West. It's not something that's just happening in Pakistan or, in South Asia. It's growing in the West, and we have to be cognizant. We have to acknowledge it. We have to speak about it. So, then I traveled to various other parts of the world. I went to the United Kingdom. The British House of Lords had invited me to come and speak to them about the Ontario experience of Sharia laws that at one point there was a push to have here, and to guide them on how to deal with the 100 Sharia councils that exist in UK. I met the victims of many of these issues. So I not only dealt with the principles and the legalities of these problems, but I also met the women who have been direct victims of Islamism, of political Islam, of Sharia-based laws. And it was really a wake-up call, because in the end, I'm a Canadian. And in the end, our purpose in doing the work that we do at Muslims Facing Tomorrow, with people like yourself and those of us who are activists, is to make sure that Canada remains safe, that Canada remains a pluralistic country, that in Canada we have the freedom of gender equality, that women are able to, excel in their rights, and that we don't let political correctness stop us from speaking about the problems. That is the main thrust of the work that I do. That unless we talk about the issues, we'll never find solutions. And you know this as well as I do. The work that I do doesn't mean that all the problems are going to be solved. But the work that I do is a drop in the ocean to make sure that at least we talk about them. Because once you stifle free speech, once you shut up conversation, once you start screaming Islamophobia anytime Islam or Muslims are criticized, then we go nowhere.
You are talking so important things and touching all important issues of today's complexities. And you just talked about Islamophobia. And in the guise of Islamophobia, what we see that there is kind of a call to shun diversity. So, here in Canada, we are experiencing Islamophobia. It exists in the society, but we do not talk about the root causes of Islamophobia as well. Why this Islamophobia is?
Well, first of all, I have an issue with the term Islamophobia because, you know, Islamophobia, you may know if you go back and you look at the history of the word Islamophobia, it's a recent construct. You know, there has always been racism and bigotry against specific communities. So, you know, why this sudden Islamophobia? It was created after 9/11 by some Islamist organizations in the United States, and they specifically said that we want to throw this idea out of a victim ideology of Islamophobia so that we can stop conversation or any kind of questioning about what Muslims are doing. You know, I'm a practicing observant Muslim, you know that. I love my faith, I have great respect for my faith, but I have a lot of difficulty with what Muslims are doing in the name of my faith. You know, it's like I feel like they've stolen the spiritual message of Islam and they have reproduced this political Islam, which is about violence and oppressing women and all the stuff that we see. 2016 was also a year in which we saw massive terrorist attacks globally, all over the world. We saw the rise of what I call the global jihad. And we have our political leaders and our religious leaders not acknowledging this. And this is what the term Islamophobia has done. It was created to stifle conversation. It was created to muzzle free speech. It was created to push back people who wanted to ask the right questions. Now, the way I look at it, I'm a Canadian citizen, you're a Canadian citizen. As a Canadian citizen, we have the right to question anything that affects the security and safety of this country that we call home. We have loyalty to this country. We want Canada to be safe. So if we see actions or words or, you know, organizations who are promoting the idea that it is okay to harm Canadians or to harm Canada, we have every right to question that. How does that become Islamophobia? And so this idea was thrown out there, and they've been very successful. This, by the way, is a multi-billion-dollar industry funded by the oil-rich kingdoms of, you know, which countries I'm talking about. And they have succeeded in frightening non-Muslims from asking all the right questions. So here we are, and in the heart of the Western world, in North America, in Canada, attacks are taking place. But if people question the global jihad behind it, if people question that radical Islamist ideology is fueling this movement of terror against innocent people, they are called Islamophobes. So I agree with you, we must always target racism and bigotry. But as racism and bigotry, this idea of Islamophobia is to tell innocent audiences or our young people that somehow it's institutionalized Islamophobia. That couldn't be far away from the truth. Look at how Muslims flourish in North America. There is no other country in the world where I think Muslims have the kind of freedoms that they do in Canada. We have freedom of education, freedom of speech, gender equality. You can follow your faith everywhere you want. Try those same freedoms in Saudi Arabia. Try those same freedoms in Iran. But they don't shout Islamophobia there. In a country where women are not allowed to drive, where you can't leave the country without a male guardian, what happens to human rights? So I have no time to indulge in the hysterics that go behind this idea of Islamophobia. We must address the problem head on. We must acknowledge it. We must name it and shame it. And that is our philosophy in Muslims Facing Tomorrow and in the work that I do. If, as a women's rights activist, if we did not call honor-based violence what it is, if we didn't call honor killings what they are, we would never find the solution.
Absolutely. On the other hand, we see now the hysteria of Islamophobia is not confined to Islamist organizations only. Some Muslim Canadian member parliamentarians, they are putting motions to support the idea. How do you see that trend?
I think that that is very concerning. I'm very worried about it because this trend of somehow trying to pass a legislation that makes it illegal to criticize or speak out against Islam or Muslims is frightening. And is totally against the concept of free speech. So I don't even see how this will get through, and if it does, I would be very concerned about it, because that is muzzling free speech, definitely. And so I think it goes, in some ways, it goes against the Charter of Human Rights, it goes against the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which allows us freedom of speech. Any ideology is open for criticism. There is no ideology in this world, including Muslims or Islamist ideology, that is not open for criticism. Because that is the only way that you can move ahead. That is the only way we can bring about change. We must be able to reflect within and see where our weaknesses and strengths are. And of course, there are some wonderful strengths in Islam and within Muslims, and we must talk about that as well. What we need, Tahir, in my understanding and in my experience of 2016, is that I feel the world has gone to two extremes, you know, the extreme right and the extreme left. And we need a balanced narrative. We need something that is balanced. We need something that is in between those two extremes, where we need to have the freedom to speak out, to critique, to bring about change, but we also need the freedom to have dialogue and discussion. And that is something sorely lacking. If you look around, you see, even in mainstream media, where are the discussions about terrorism and about radicalization and the root causes of radicalization and about the hate that is being taught through curriculums and about the hate that is being taught in places of worship and at a very young age? None of this should be made taboo. You know, this should be open for discussion so that you and I can create a better Canada for our children and grandchildren, because that is why we do the work that we do. You know, I'm at an age where I've lived most of my life, but I do this because I want a better world for my children and my grandchildren. And if we stop them from asking the right questions, we'll never have a better world.
Right. On the other hand, we also see about honor killing. Islamist organizations are trying to hide this disease, and they say this is just a domestic violence. And you are on the forefront to fight honor killing trend, not just in Canada, all across the world. Lately, you have attended film Dokhtar's premiere properly.
Yes.
In Europe.
Yes.
And so there is an urge in Pakistan even.
Yes.
To fight this cancer.
Yes.
But we don't see that kind of urge in Western world.
Isn't that ironical? I find that so ironical, Tahir, that I was at the Censored Women's Film Festival 2016 in Berlin, and the first film that they screened was the Pakistani film Dokhtar. And it wasn't the premiere. I'm incorrect there. It's already been premiered. It's won many awards, but they screened it at this Berlin Film Festival to a full theater, and everybody had tears, and we got a standing ovation. And I spoke after the screening of the film. It's a brilliant film, and I was so proud that Pakistan has made this film because it covers all the issues: forced and underage marriage, the whole culture of honor that permeates. So you know as well as I do that in 2016, Pakistan did pass a law that actually makes honor killings a criminal offense. And also, they passed a law which does not allow people to use the Sharia concept that if a family member forgives the perpetrator, they'll get away with it. And this was the case of that young social media girl who was killed by her brother. And we have to be cognizant that, yes, in a country like Pakistan, they have been able to pass a law. They are calling it what it is, which is an honor killing. But here in the West, we have organizations and academics and institutions waffling over this idea. Even politicians that, you know, should you call it honor or not? Yes, we are very clear. It is the intention of the murderer, because they, in their own words, have said very clearly, not once, but hundreds of times, that they are doing this because they want to cleanse the honor of the family. It happened in the Shafia case. Shafia is on record as saying that he did this for his honor. It happened in the Aqsa Parvez case in Canada. It has happened in all the honor killing cases that we have been following, where the intention is that of honor. So therefore, it's very important to keep the term honor and call it an honor killing, because that is the intention. And it then makes it easier for the law enforcement agencies, for the legal system to look at this as a separate heading. In England, they've been able to make it a very specific heading under their legal system, under their law enforcement system, and we are working in different parts of the world. But to come back to your question, it is very frustrating and very ironical that Western leaders, because of political correctness, are not able to articulate the words that are part of the problem. It's a barbaric issue. It's a very, very barbaric practice, and we need to eliminate it. There are hundreds and thousands of girls who have lost their lives because of honor killings, and honor-based violence perpetuates itself in many different ways. You know, it exists in societies, not just in South Asia, but now in Western society. So unless we recognize it and make it separate from domestic violence, we will not be able to target the root causes. We will not be able to help law enforcement deal with the issues.
You were in Berlin.
Yes.
About a week before the terrorist attack happened on Christmas.
Yes,
holidays.
it's so sad that we were in Berlin for this Censored Women's Film Festival, and then we heard that this Berlin Christmas market is something that one must see. So we decided to go in the evening and do our Christmas shopping from the Berlin Christmas market, and I can't begin to tell you what a wonderful experience it was. I mean, you know, there are stalls of food and music and dancing. It was just wonderful. But there were so many people that the thought crosses your mind, because when you have dealt with looking at, you know, the mindset of the radicals, the thought crosses your mind, oh my God, I hope nothing happens here. A week later, at the same place, we were standing in front of the very church where this attack happened. At the same spot and at the same time this happened. And it is heartrending that human beings today can think of doing something like this and kill innocent men, women, and children in a place where they have gone to celebrate. And I feel very frustrated and very, you know, sometimes very sad that we are not able to deal with this problem head on. Why is it that we can't do that? You know, I'm not a political leader, so I don't have the answer. My job is to put the issue out in the open, to talk about it, to you know, create safe spaces where we can discuss this. And what is happening is that in 2016, there were so many terrorist attacks in the Western world that there is now a backlash. And we are the ones who are going to face that. Our children are the ones who are going to face that. And you can't blame the mainstream, because they're also fed up of this conversation. You know, an attack happens, and you have these political pundits, I call them, they come on TV, and they go on and on, was it mental sickness? Of course it's mental sickness when somebody kills innocent people. But, you know, they want to find, was this person disturbed as a child, and, you know, what sort of psychological illness they have. It's a global jihad, stupid. How many times do we have to say this over and over again? But now that is what the mantra has to be in 2017. It's a global jihad, stupid. And if people don't pick it up, then there is something wrong with them.
We saw victory of Donald Trump in 2016. He is saying that he would confront global jihad. What is your view on that?
I hope that he will. That is our hope with Mr. Trump. You know, Mr. Trump is not politically correct. He says a lot of very strange things. We know that. He loves drama. He loves hysteria. And there has been huge hysteria surrounding his election. But, you know, he won a fair election. There he is. Our hope as reformist Muslims in Mr. Trump is the fact that he recognizes global jihad. He speaks about global jihad, and he has actually put out a call for action and said that he will sit around a table with reformist Muslims, and hopefully we will be able to talk about these things. Now, this is a great breakthrough, because in the 8 years of the Obama administration, leave alone having reformist Muslims around his table, he couldn't even articulate the word radical Islamist ideology. You know, for him, for Mr. Obama, it was more about appeasement. You know, it was more about, I think perhaps he thought that if he appeased the extremists, they wouldn't harm his country, but they did. And all he did is made a mess of things. So the hope with Mr. Trump, who is the exact opposite, obviously, is that he will bring the reformist Muslims to the table. And what we have always said is that, yes, you can speak to whoever you want. If you want to have people like CARE around the table, fine, it's a free country. But then also have the alternate. You know, we have an alternate narrative. We have a different way of dealing with things. We are peace-loving, reform-minded Muslims who want to see peace in the world, who want to see Islam and Muslims come into the 21st century to embrace the values of a liberal democracy, of gender equality, of separation of church and state, to put the concept of armed jihad in the 7th century parking lot. And you know, that's one of the things that we have created, is the 7th century parking lot. We want to take some of the notions that are not valid today and park them there. You know, we are not Islamic scholars, so obviously we can't change that notion, but we can say, okay, let's park it in the 7th century parking lot for now. We don't need to implement it today, because we are living in nation states. We are not tribes anymore. We are not barbarians. We don't have to attack each other. So we have to find a way of getting around our differences without killing each other. I mean, look, so many people in the conversations I've had in my travels throughout the world, mostly people don't know how much diversity there is within Islam. And they are absolutely amazed when you tell them, you know, how many different denominations we have. You tell them about the Sufis. You tell them about different ways that people have of practicing the faith. There is so much beauty in our faith that never gets discussed, because we're always talking about the terrorists and the radicals. And what can you do? They're in our face. You know, the Sufis are not activists, so they don't propagate their message in a very, you know, marketed type of way. And I was so glad when I saw this done, covered by you. But we need to market that alternate message. We need to talk about the beauty, the art, the culture, the calligraphy, the most beautiful things that we have in our faith. But unfortunately we can't, because we're constantly putting out fires. But when we do talk about it, people are amazed. They're so enthralled by this idea. And to come back again, that film Dukhtar that we saw, they picked up on a terrible subject, a very negative topic, which was about child marriage, but they showed it in the atmosphere of the beauty of Pakistan. It was done through this beauty of the culture, the music, and the actual people who enacted it. So it was, you know, really such a heartwarming way of showing the issue. And that's what we have to do. We have to do more of that promotion of the alternate narrative. We have to be able to find ways in which we can downplay and shame the voices of the extremists. And we have to wake up the silent majority to tell them, you know, this is your faith, your future, your children, your country, Canada. So it's 150 years we are celebrating. Let's find a way of eliminating the extremism, of sidelining the radicals and making our voices the ones that speak for Muslims.
There's a petition on internet that suggests Donald Trump to meet Muslim reform movements.
Yes.
And you and I are part of that movement. And being our leader, if we get chance to meet Donald Trump as a leader, what would you suggest him?
Well, first of all, yes, you know, the Clarion Project has put out this petition that Trump should meet the reformist Muslims. I think when we meet with him, what I would like to suggest is, let's have a regular series of roundtables with reform-minded Muslims, with the people who are trying to bring about change, and make a plan of action for the next 5 years, let's say, of what we can do. I would ask him what we can do to help. What we can do to make North America strong again. As he says, let's make America strong again. But America can only be strong along with its Muslim population, along with its Muslim citizens who are part of America. So there has to be a way of re-engaging those people who have become somewhat disappointed, those people who think that they can't make any difference. The youth. I think our focus would have to be on the youth, the next generation. How can we engage them? You know, how can we bring them back where they can have pride in being, you know, a Canadian Muslim or an American Muslim? And these are the ways in which we can start the dialogue. Obviously, it's not an overnight change. Obviously, we don't have all the solutions. But at least if we are around a table together, we can start talking about ideas in which we can make this country strong.
There is a fear that Mr. Trump would be tough with Muslims. But on the other hand, many wise Muslim leaders, they also understand that since Muslims are killing Muslims in the name of global jihad, Mr. Trump would be helping most Muslims from all those extremists. Do you view this reality that way as well?
I do view this reality that way. I think it's time to be tough, definitely. If there are people who are harming this country, you have to be tough on them. There is no other way. I mean, they have to be treated like criminals if they are criminals. If they have criminal intentions, if they have negative intentions, they have to be treated that way. I know that this calls for strong measures, but difficult times call for difficult measures. We are not living, in a pre-9/11 world. We are living in a world where terrorism is a daily thing. We are living in a world where we look at crowds and we worry about what's going to happen. So if tough measures have to be taken to clear up the garbage and to clear up what the difficulties are, then yes, I'm definitely for that. I've always said, people sometimes complain that there is invasion of our privacies, telephones are being tapped, or, in a post-9/11 world, there is a lot of this going on. It's okay if you have nothing to hide, then I don't fear that. I had an organization. If my bank account needs to be checked, if my telephone lines need to be checked, so be it. We are living in such times. Look at how we deal with security at the airport. 20 years ago, this was not the situation. But now, because we live in a post-terrorism world, these are the realities. And I appreciate it because that security check is being done for my benefit. So if security checks are going to be done, if tough measures are going to be taken, they are for the benefit of me and my children. So I'm all for it.
All along 2016, in your all international visits, you spoke about political correctness. You condemned environment of political correctness. Yes. And we see that political correctness in Canada at its height. So how could we address that political correctness in Canada and elsewhere?
Well, the Western world has to really wake up and smell the coffee, or maybe drink a lot more coffee and understand that political correctness does not help the situation. Now, when I traveled to Europe, I was relieved to see that they're not as politically correct as we are in North America. North America is suffering from the disease of political correctness, and it's growing because of these issues like Islamophobia that keep being thrown into our face. So we have to find a way to overcome that, because I think that one thing that Mr. Trump will not bring in will be political correctness. I mean, he's definitely not politically correct. And, that comes with its own issues. But hey, I'll take that over political correctness any day. Political correctness can, to not be political correct, to be honest and to be truthful can be harsh and painful. People don't like the truth. But it's better than the lies that covers up under political correctness. So political correctness is just a way of covering up lies. And so we don't want that. We want to be truthful, we want to be honest, and we know that some of that may be directed at us, but we have to be brave enough to accept that. That is the only solution. That is the only way that we will be able to move forward. Otherwise, we will totally sink into this quicksand of political correctness, and we will never be able to talk about the problems. And to not talk about the problems means we'll never find solutions. So we have hope, and one lives in hope of that 2017 will bring us lack of political correctness. Western leaders to just wake up and say it's a global jihad, and to find solutions to the problems.
2017, how does it look like for you, as 2016 was very busy for you?
I am an eternal optimist. My hope is that 2017 will also be busy, because busy is good. I hope there will be, of course, much fewer terrorist attacks or incidents. I hope people will wake up and that we will have better conversations and more dialogue and discussion, which is why I'm so grateful to you for having me on your program so we can have this honest conversation. And that's the only kind of conversation that I have time for. I may be honest with you. I am in my golden years. Every day is a bonus. I don't have the patience for beating around the bush. So if someone gives me the time to talk, I can only talk about things that are close to my heart. I want to talk about issues that matter, and I want to talk about what is truth and justice, because that is the basis of the work that I do.
Anything else which is close to your heart and I missed in this conversation today?
My grandchildren are very close to my heart. They are growing by leaps and bounds. I have 4 of them and maybe more in the future. But, this is an opportunity to wish everyone a peaceful, happy new year. And I hope that we will continue this conversation.
Thank you very much, Raheel.
Thank you.
Viewers, you were watching Candid Talk with Tahir Gora. Thank you for watching us.
#1 multicultural channel. This is TAG TV.